Testing, testing. Oh, yes. We got the circle in the house. Okay. All systems roll. Moshiach, my name is Yosef Edery. Welcome to the Zug Experience. I'm going to try to dissect life. This is a casual conversation, casual podcast. I'm here joined with my good and trusted friend, Rafi Farber. This time we're rolling.
Happy Thursday night.
Every Thursday night we do this. And then by the time we're done editing, it's like mid next week. But okay, got to do what you got to do to keep the quality high and the mics fly. Anyway, Rafi, what's going on?
What's going on? It looks like Israeli democracy is trying to flush a clogged toilet for a third time. They don't understand that in order to flush a clogged toilet, you have to clear away the junk before you attempt a third flush.
Right. I don't think anything has changed in the psychic of the Israeli population. I don't think that there's not enough material there's not enough that happened in between. All the politicians, none of them made a change in their stance. I didn't see anyone change direction. I think they're all depleted. They don't have any funds.
Doesn't this seem like a divine joke to you? Like God is playing a joke on the entire country? It seems hilarious to me. I love this.
Perhaps. I mean, in order for us, Rafi obviously is not one of the people that even for a split second is taken by anything that happens anywhere in the world. He understands everything. If it's Trump, the Federal Reserve, the news, the economic crisis.
I pretend to understand everything.
Oh, you pretend to understand. Well, you're confident enough to.
I believe I understand everything. It doesn't mean I do.
You perceive that you believe in your experience. Well. Anyway, so I'm saying like Lieberman is going against. He reaffirmed his hate for the Orthodox community and the fact that he's going to build his campaign on the fact that he hates different communities to solidify his base. So that in itself just shows you that him and other big players are not learning from their mistakes. They're not being flexible, and they're not giving up their ground. They're just not understanding the other.
Well, can't you at least appreciate Lieberman for his honesty? Because really, when it comes down to it, all politics, even the most polite politics, is about hate, because it's about taking stuff from other people to give to your people. Or, what it creates sinaskinam. That's the structure of it. So at least he's being honest and saying, vote for me because I hate everybody. I mean, he's saying what's true for everybody who's running.
Yeah, he is. He's being honest, but to be honest, that's not the kind of leaders we want. We don't want leaders that are segregated.
We don't want honest leaders.
No, we don't want leader. You think that every single leader has to hate somebody?
Yes.
You think that if I run to be mayor and you're running in my party, we hate somebody? Well, we are gonna hate.
Yeah, I do.
We hate some pedophiles. We hate rapists. We hate thieves.
Well, the thing is
that justifiable?
I hate the government itself. Most people in the government hate whatever.
Why do you hate the government? Let's go deeper.
Oh well.
Because they make people's lives miserable, right?
Well, I guess.
And they steal,
we could tie it back into this. I mean.
So what I'm saying is we have you can hate the right things. You can hate thieves. You can hate murderers. You can hate a justice system which doesn't function to produce justice. You can hate anything that's wrong in the world. Now, if you keep it simple, you might actually be able to maintain a healthy, fundamental view of the world.
Yeah, if you keep it like he's right, Yosef, you're right. Keep it simple. Like if you don't understand where all the things that you hate come from, then you have all these different little hatreds in your head that you're trying to organize and trying to.
Right. If you say I hate government, I hate government. Some governments are good. Some things.
All the problems, everything, all the evil in the world comes back to them all the time. Ultimately, it traces back to them. So, but
that's like saying all the evil in the house ultimately traces back to the wife. Does it mean that we have to let me give you an example. Like a lot of husbands.
I can't agree with that statement either. That and I'm not with you there.
No, what I'm trying to say is that sometimes you have to think to yourself and say, okay, like we speak about government overreach. So sometimes a woman has, let's say, access to all the funds of the family, and she'll just use it to spend it on something that puts the family back 10 years economically.
I think that would
that yeah, you understand what I'm saying. So then when we talk about
What's the problem?
government overreach, government overreach is almost like wife overreach into the pocket. So it's
You're saying like the government is our wife?
what I'm saying is that
I
if
think
it's
of us more as like the beaten wife of the government
yeah, but
who's an abusive
yeah,
husband.
okay, but even if the malchus is like a nekeva, leis lemi gamer klum, and but even if your wife is being a problem, you know that all the money in the world is not enough, is not worth anything, because for you it's more important to be happily married and for your kids to be happy. So you're going to go and try to talk to your wife, or maybe put your keys away and your credit card away, but in other words, you're going to make legislation to make it harder for police to bang down your door and walk into your house in the middle of the night without a warrant, without a judge putting out a thing. So you're going to make it harder for them to do things that aren't right, but you still understand the reason they exist.
Well, not
Well,
most
there are
people,
many
but I guess the
deserts,
same
Rafi, that you can
people.
go to without any government overreach, but the only thing you're going to eat there is sand and chatzatz.
Well, you see that's an argument that a lot of people tell me, and it's a fallacy because like let's say I have like 10x, let's just say,
What do you mean 10x?
like a made up number. Let's say I have 1,000 things. Okay, a
Oh,
house.
value wise, like you're
Yeah,
talking about.
a house, books, couches, whatever I have, and then, and I have like very little freedom. But there, where I have maximum freedom, let's say in Antarctica, I can live among the penguins and have like nothing.
Living among the
But
penguins.
then I have nothing. So I'd rather have stuff and have stuff be stolen from me than to have nothing and have nothing be stolen from me. Obviously.
Oh, exactly. So there is a benefit here. So there
So
is something.
plus I'm.
So exactly, like the wife. You have a wife, you have kids, and then sometimes she,
So yeah, I guess at least here the wife, if the government's my wife, here I'm not intermarried.
yeah. I mean, here you can divorce real quick. You just jump on a plane and. But what I'm saying is, there, if you what we hate, we should hate, uh, the evil in the world, the raw, and the things that don't allow success.
Really, even that is exhausting. Go around life with focus on hatred, even if it's on the right things.
Not hate, but despise or intolerance.
There's gotta be a positive emotion from people who aren't like us, who don't want to just like hate everything all the time, and
No, we
they want to
don't.
feel good about things.
Of course, that's what we're saying. We're trying to create. Okay, well, without any gvuras, you don't have any chesed, right? Like Jonathan was saying, a sword is very important. It needs to be hanging over everyone's head in order to remind everyone that whoever disturbs the peace will be killed. In other words, there's a place for the sword, or in other words, there's a place for the gevura, and that place needs to be those who disturb the peace, those who rape the children, those who steal, those who murder. They are going to feel the wrath, and that's the place that the wrath needs to be.
Like in the government, you mean? That's the place where the wrath needs to be.
Yeah, let's say the force, whatever. If everything is organized properly, okay, like I was just we have our
But everything is never organized properly.
well, that's why we're here. We're here to make some seder.
I'm not here to make some seder out of the government. I'm here to get rid of it.
That's you see. Well, Rafi, let me ask you a question. After you finished, let's say theoretically, your dream comes true. There's no government in the world, period. And then there's a guy that starts to just he goes into people's houses, kills them and their family and their kids and the wife, and just takes all their money, and you just see him with his truck hauling everyone's shit into his house. Don't you think at a certain point people are going to be like, wait a minute, this nigga needs to go, and then
See,
let's.
I've been down this argumentative reasoning path many times.
And what's your answer?
My answer is you're coming to conclusions. You
No, I'm
don't, but
giving you a theoretical.
you don't know. But
There are, I'm sure there are some people that have a lot of hate and shice built up in them, and the second they know that there's.
because we could talk about
No, Rafi,
this whole
there's
line for
no,
a
but you
long
have to
time.
have an example. Is there a place in the world that anarchy worked perfectly?
Well, there's two examples that I use, one for Frum Jews and one for everybody else.
Give us both.
The answer for Frum Jews that I use is yes, the period of the Shoftim. Jewish history was at its most peaceful, and you would say, oh, but Shoftim is full of war and death and killing and civil war. That's true, but those are the stories, and in between those stories, there are psukim that read, Vayishkot haaretz 40 shana, Vayishkot haaretz 80 shana. Can you remember there was ever a time in Jewish history where there were 40, 80 years of just nothing interesting happening. People just living their lives, and it's peaceful. And you have these little skirmishes every now and then in the Shoftim. Yeah, that's true. But then when you have the era of the Malachim, you have war after war after war, and death and death and death, and like everything falls apart after that. We're good for what, like 40 years under Shlomo's institution, and then immediately there was a secession because of a tax rebellion that happened on Lag BaOmer, by the way. It just might be why we light fires. But from the Gemara.
We'll get into that later.
But yeah, so anarchy worked perfectly in the Jewish people, and Am Yisrael worked fine. Things got worse when we started Kings. And the other example is was Pennsylvania for about 150 years, something like that, 1630 to 17 something. I have to look it up in one of.
All the time before the British came? Well, all the time before the American Revolution?
Not all the time, not the whole time, but for I think it was at least a few decades, if not a century, that Pennsylvania was just, there was no government. People were just doing
their thing.
Yeah. And so my specific answer is, if the government were gone tomorrow, then we would still have capital. We would still have people, right? We would have people in a police force. You'd have this infrastructure of enforcing laws against criminals. I mean, people would go to work the next day, and you'd have to reorganize based on supply and demand, who does what. But like, you have your division of labor, you have all this stuff together. There wouldn't be
government. You see,
chaos.
that's the the genius or the absurdity of it all. Government isn't really too much. There's only government really is, like, if you want to talk about like the government, it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 people that are sitting in a place, and they kind of call some shots that have ripple effects all the way down the chains of everything else that's happening in that specific government. So I mean,
I don't know. It depends how many government officials you've met here.
you can call that drama. You can call that like they live off the drama of whatever they pull through. And then you have like, okay, so what if shots weren't called? Basically, no reforms, no nothing, no changes.
Besides, we have the Torah here. I mean, it sounds like a frummy statement, but I'm saying seriously. Like, you have a culture of Jews here that have an idea.
Yeah, we have a book of
order.
laws. We have our own thing going. We know not to kill, not because we're taught it in the Leumi public schools.
That was a chiddush we made when we got the Torah. That was a chiddush. Don't kill.
Yeah, don't kill.
It's also a chiddush of you can't have somebody just telling you what to do. That's Yitzias Mitzrayim.
Right, and you see, because when we left Egypt, we became free, and free people need to know that you're not allowed to kill, not because a government told them to, but because that's what they need to do. So what Yitzias Mitzrayim does is it creates a free people that independently know how to function as normal people without somebody else telling them what to do. In other words, grow up, nigga.
So let me give you a realistic scenario for how things could fall apart here. But like maybe
or how we can make it fall.
No, like in a good way. I'm not talking about like catastrophe or anything. But
okay.
But like look at the situation we're in now. I would call it a plunter. Plunter. I see this word on the news all the time now. The plunter hapoliti. So
a plunder.
Now, for the first time in Israeli history, you're going to have a third round of elections, but for what? Like, what is going to change? Nothing's going to change.
Nothing's changed. All the party members. Moshe Feiglin never met me yet, so that's obviously going to make sure that Zehut doesn't change.
So then, what happens when there's a fourth, fifth, sixth? I don't know how many there's going to be.
Just to remind you, England didn't have a government for like 4 years, and that was like nothing.
Okay, so who knows? We haven't had a government for what, over a year now.
Almost, like, yeah, kind of.
So, like, then what happens when the budgets start? Theoretically, it's not going to come to this, but like, think about theoretically what would happen, right? So there's no government, 3, 4, 5 years. There's no budget. Like, public institutions start shutting down. There's no school. There's no this. There's no that. So like, eventually, everything the government is in charge of just shuts down. And then people see, they start to understand how much the government controls in their lives.
So you're saying not to vote is the mitzvah of the day?
Well, what I'm hoping for is a much lower voter turnout, unless.
Well, they're already not going to get a higher voter turnout because they just said that that it's going to continue being a work day. That means that everyone's going to have to continue working, or lose their money, and everyone should go out to vote anyway. And a lot of people are mad about that. They're like, "Excuse me, I'm working for the government in the system, and I'm going to lose a day of work to vote? Hell no, I'm going to work." So a lot of people are not going to go to work, are not going to vote just because of that. I'm talking about like I'm giving you information from the lower levels, you know.
Good.
So that's
Good.
already going to rip the whole thing.
Voting is a gross thing to do. It's like makes me feel disgusting when I
Why?
do it.
Because why? You think it's
Because
like Zara
because
Levatala?
what right? Like I do it when someone who I think can actually change things for the better is running, which is very very rare.
But it's not about. It's not what you know. Voting is not what counts. It's who counts the votes that counts.
Yeah, that's true, but
Dear
that's true. I get that.
children,
But why does voting make me feel gross? Because like who am I? Like this whole act of people think they have a right because they put a piece of paper in an envelope to tell people where to put their money. Like the whole thing just it lacks any kind of respect for anybody else's property. Like because voting is a magical thing, you can suddenly tell people what to do with it. Like you have some kind of proxy voice, which you don't even have.
well, I mean, like if the Jewish people need to build a Beis Hamikdash, right, and they want to take a collective amount of money to do that, we're going to need to vote about it so that the kupat ha'ir, or the collective good of the community,
Believe me, I don't think you would have to tax anybody.
everybody would donate money,
Any
right?
if the base images are being built tomorrow, billionaire Jews, millionaire Jews, everywhere, the money would be there in
In
24
5 minutes, right?
hours.
In 24
You don't have
hours.
to force anybody to do it. I wouldn't want to be in a base in McDush that was funded by taxes. I would just boycott it. I don't want that.
Rafi, don't say bli neder just in case,
Clean that there, but
because things could.
that's not happening.
Well, no, I mean, yeah. By the way, Rafi, do you know what the law is in Israel regarding tax deductible donations? Does that exist here?
I don't know anything about laws.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, wrong address. I was actually thinking like,
I asked my accountant how much taxes I pay, and I pay it. That's it.
and what's it called? What about in America? Do you know anything? Like, how much could a person pay 100% of his taxes in tax deductible donation?
I don't know.
Because that's an interesting thing. 'Cause like if
I think if you earn enough money and you have enough money to get the right accountant, he can do anything you want with your money to get you out of any tax
that's also true, by the way. I heard
legally.
I heard that Kanye West, the whole church thing that he was doing is in order to evade taxes. That's one of the
Wait,
things that.
what was that? The company that didn't they found like a zero has a zero tax liability now. Some big Dow 30 company. I forgot.
We live in a great time. Anyway, let's bring it back a minute. Let's bring it. I think that the revolution starts locally, and when I say that, sometimes people are like, locally, how you gonna? Well, you gotta. I think that you can make change in a small way, and like here in Katzrin in the Golan Heights, we could try to make some change. We can try to take a template of a small town. Me coming, did you live in a big city when you were growing up?
Comparatively.
Yeah, so I grew up in New York, obviously, so you don't feel like you can do any change there. And also, I actually think that in bigger cities, the voting turnout is very, very low compared to smaller cities, because the smaller cities, everybody feels that they have an impact. But the bigger cities, like only 30-20% vote, or in New York, it was like, oh my, it was even less than that, because people don't feel, they feel insignificant.
Well, they're right. They are insignificant.
Yeah,
I mean, in terms of voting power, sure. Yeah.
yeah. So what I think is that I think that also, like, in the Torah it says, "Pru urvu umilu haaretz v'kivshuah." Be fruitful, multiply, fill the land, and conquer it. And I think that when we spread out in the world in general, and we first of all, when you're in the outskirts of town, you're more in touch with the actual world. You're in touch with nature. You're in touch. You have some more peace and quiet, which eventually translate to being in touch with Hashem, I guess. And I think that that's the way we're supposed to live. We're not supposed to be living in an 80-floor high rise or smack in the middle of Manhattan in Chinatown or something. I think that that's you're not living in the natural way, and I think that the world is empty. And I think that if it's actually funny that in the city the prices are higher, and then a lot of people theorize that New York City is an open air prison of sorts with psychological locks that lock people in there. I could understand why people live in New York. I lived in New York. I know that you can make a lot of dough if you know how to roll the dough properly. But
Yeah, if you get a thrill out of that, sure. I just find it exhausting.
yeah, yeah, you don't really. I mean, I mean, it's a lot of fun, but it's not. I mean, it's not called living. You're not there. You're in a trance.
That reminds me.
You're in a rush.
Reminds me of something I read today.
Okay.
Like New York, so New York Times. Like I read this post where Paul Krugman, the New York Times columnist, he's the really, they call it liberal, but like he's just a status guy. And he says, oh, he loves his career and all that he does, and he's made so many friends. He's like this. He's a Nobel Prize winning economist, quote unquote. But he feels like he wants to do something bigger, to sacrifice something for, like, to have some meaning. And like this guy, he's a Jew, but like he's totally Meshumad. I don't think he converted. He's just, it's irrelevant to him. And he's such an evil person, and he doesn't even realize it. And he wants all this meaning, but he lives in New York City, and he doesn't even have any kids. And like, really, like I'm just looking at him like he's just a big teenager. He has no life experience. Like he sits there and he writes like
It's actually funny. Like I don't know. I would be interested to talk to him and be like, what do you think meaning is? Maybe if you get married to another guy, that would be meaning in your life. I don't know. Like Brian Stelter or all these losers that you don't know what their orientation of anything is. Forget about their sexual. You don't know what their how they orient in the world.
the life is being run by kids who adults who never grew up.
Yeah. Like I remember I was in yeshiva and there was a kid that he had a hard time reading and a hard time keeping up with things, but he had a good heart, and he was telling me like, Michael Jackson has this quote in one of his songs that says "Blah, blah, 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 blah," some cliche quote, and I'm like, so now your mashpia is Michael Jackson? Is that what's happening? And he's like, that's where you get your inspiration from. And he's like, he got very offended because but I'm saying like that's kind of like a tip to like. Unfortunately, today you have a situation where a lot of the youth, Disney and all the schmutz that includes, and the TV. You don't have a TV in your living room, so I'm already impressed. But there's a lot of, unfortunately, there's a lot of the younger generation. They're in a bad place. Their kids are whores
I try to shield my kids from this,
yes.
I can only do it for so long. Eventually, the wall's gonna come
Eventually,
down.
no. Eventually, you have your time, and then they have their time when it's their choice to make. It's. But as a good parent, right now, what you think is so and so and so, and that's what you're giving to your kids. Giving them a taste, a sample of life, in a good way. Hopefully, they won't have any backlash from it. They'll accept what you gave them in a healthy way, not in a non-traumatic way,
I
and
hope
hope.
so, because I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just winging.
Yeah, but I mean, as long as you're not hitting them over the head, you should not do this. Hopefully, it should be okay.
Thank God there's no physical violence in my home.
Okay, yes, Rafi, you're a very soft-spoken man. Even the mic is never close enough to you. Anyway, that's okay. Anyway, so the point is, I'm saying, yeah, I mean, as long as anyway, the point is that today, unfortunately, the youth and the culture in mainstream, I think all the cultures are suffering in this new era. The Chinese, the Japanese, all the traditions, all the cultures. In a way, we're kind of reaping the benefits of this freedom, Kazan, and we're kind of trying to migrate and take advantage of this chaos. But it is
I
chaos.
see what you mean. Like, ever since the 19th century, the Japanese culture has been poisoned by the West. And, they used to have these samurai, and now they don't, and now they're all just like following the price of Bitcoin and staring at their phones like everybody
The
else.
Japanese. I mean, listen, the Japanese. There's a movie, The Last Samurai.
They're,
It,
they're not getting married anymore, and they have the oldest population, having no kids.
they have they're depressed. They have no honor. They have no all the stuff that made a Japanese. You can see it in The Last Samurai.
The
The way
Japanese were like the Klingons of the human race, and then they just like,
no, they were actually they were an extremely they were I can compare them like to the Spartans. The Spartans that they whipped the shiest out of each other in order to create this bombastic Spartan soldier. And 300 of them were able to toast and roast 10,000 soldiers before they were killed. These are nutcases. And that's their whole honor and that's their whole power. So the samurai and the entire culture of perfection that they had emotion, they had everything going, and they had honor and this whole thing. Now, obviously, there's things that, but I think that the way the world is now, the world just tearing itself apart. Kind of, it's almost like you're ripping the car
It
apart.
feels like we're about to give birth to something, and I don't know if it's going to be good or really bad.
Exactly. It's like the part where it's like you take a car, an old car, and you have some new machines and you have some new technology, some new intel how to make a better car. So you start tearing the whole thing apart and putting it all on pieces in the grass, and now you have the engine in 1,000 million pieces, and everybody's hoping and praying that you know how to put it back all together. And then there's one guy there he's like, okay, before we even get to work, let's just start cleaning all the screws. So everybody pass around the oil. Let's clean all the screws, and then we're all like, so there's this kind of like everything's being ripped apart, and hopefully it's all going to come back together, and hopefully the thing's going to work at the end.
Well, look, I mean, the Galus Roma, this Galus since the destruction of Korban by Sheni, the it's called Galus Roma, and the last collapse of society was the collapse of the Roman Empire, which is what around like 400, 500 something, and the Dark Ages lasted for about 700 years. I mean, that was when the entire developed economy of the entire world collapsed because there was too much spending, and the exact stuff that's going on now. Except now Rome is really America, and when people think of America, they think of like the map of America with the shape of the 48 states mainland, but it's not that, because
It's the children
no,
of.
because America has conquered the entire world. Their army is everywhere in every country, not literally, but like in every notable country with any kind of power or influence. They're there, and the dollar is used by everyone. When America collapses, everything goes down, and we either go into another Dark Ages or Gallus Roma ends. And rise up. We're
So
positioned here already for a reason. I don't
so
think.
what do you so okay, yeah, so what were you trying to get at, like?
It feels like we're at the petach of something.
Right, right. So as we were saying, like with the muscle of the car, right? So this is like a yeah. So this is like a ripping apart, like of the whole uh,
Right now we're just at the casing. We're not in the engine room yet, but we're getting there.
do you think so? I think we're ripping this, but no, we're past the casing, Rafi. Trust me.
Because people are still being fed and
You know how
accepting their payouts
that
and
that that
handouts.
that doesn't mean that, but this time it's not going to be like dark ages, famine, and it's not about that. Because now we're talking about different issues. We're talking about suicide. We're talking about overkill with pills. We're talking about drug abuse. We're talking about loss of purpose, loss of identity. We have Justin Bieber and a bunch of bitches, excuse my French, that have the highest views on YouTube. We have a manipulation of the press. We have a manipulation of information. We have a manipulation of value in the world.
I guess thank God for our parents and the way we were educated. I never had a struggle with identity. Thank God. I mean, I understand people that have, but I've always,
Well,
my ideas of
conservative.
Torah Messina aside, I always
Well,
always had a
the
firm
conservative. If
identity.
conservatism has in this day and age. I mean, conservatism, I think, is exactly the toolkit, because conservatism always tries to kind of be in the present and in the future.
I'm not even sure what conservatism is.
Jewish conservatism, the
You
way
mean
I,
the
the way
conservative
I the
movement in
why
Judaism?
yeah the
Oh, is that
way
what you're talking about? I'm talking about like Edmund Burke and
no, no,
conservatism.
no, I'm looking at I'm looking
You're
at
looking at me as a conservative Jew. I'm not.
no,
I'm not a conservative
no, no,
Jew.
no, I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at that kind of outlook, that style of looking at things.
I don't know what style you're looking at. You're talking about. You'd have to describe it.
Well, like you can be an Orthodox Jew that's just trying to like grab like the ancient minhagim and whatever, put together a style and
Okay.
go with it. And then you can have someone that's analyzing all the movements. He's looking at Judaism like a stock market.
He's looking at it from a bird's eye view.
Yeah. And he's
Okay,
also
that's
looking
an
at
academic.
yeah, and also like yeah, so he's looking at it and
He's not in it. He's looking at it.
at it, but he's in it. That's the thing.
he lives it, but he's in it from like a different
No, so the difference between an
dimension.
academic, okay, so you can have a Jew that is a practicing Jew, then you have a Jew that's practicing, but he's also looking at it and trying to upgrade it as he goes. So it's almost like the
Right, those
Christians.
are the people on the front lines. Those are the dangerous positions.
Yeah. So you have like almost like a Christian that he's like analyzing Christianity until he becomes a Jew eventually, and he has like this whole um, process that he. So we have the people that are living it, but they're not interested in looking for change, and those are the kind of like people that are square, and they're like, why are you even asking questions, right? So those are the people that are in it, but they're not trying to change it. And then you have the people that are just academically looking at it, but
And like
they
mocking it from outside.
they might be mocking it, they might be studying it, but they're not investing in it.
Right.
So their connection to it is only academic, like you said.
Those are people who are okay, but they just personally annoy me.
Like the person that's going to put on a burqa to feel like what it is to be an Arab or something. So there's like these liberals that think they got it all down pat.
They have a right to do that, but like I understand what the liberals mean when they talk about cultural appropriation. When like an
Yeah,
academic that believes in none of it, he starts practicing it.
all of it. Yeah, he's like one week he's a Jew, the next week he's a Muslim, the next week he's a Christian, the next week he's doing
It's
idol
fine. I'm
worship.
not gonna beat him over the head. It's just annoying.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. But then you have the person who's like, oh, I was giving that example of conservative Judaism, which is not saying that you're conservative, Rafi. I'm just saying that that look that you have, the way you look at things,
Yeah,
which is
looking at things critically. That's the first
critically,
thing.
you're in it, but you're not, um, you're in it, you're practicing it, but you're also,
Yeah, that's true.
but at the same time, that's the highest level of practicing Judaism, because that's when you see the Bechira Chofshis, the free choice, in its fullest fury. In other words, someone that's taught Judaism and he's taught not to think too much about it, he's kind of his free choice is kind of limited,
Yeah.
because he's not even his free choice is the fact that he chooses not to choose. Almost, it's like a security measure. It's like a malware antivirus system on his computer that kills everything, also good stuff. It's like, so it's like almost like a, anyway. I mean, in my humble opinion, every Jew needs to have the toiv, the ra, the chayim, the bracha, the klala, and be fluent in both sides of the story. Because I'm against.
Not every Jew is capable of that.
That's also true.
Some need to think one dimensionally because that's what was developed in them, and that's it. That's what they have.
Yeah, that's also true. There's the leaders need to be 2 dimension or 3 dimension. The leaders need to be able to see things in like the typical Sanhedrin. They had to be. They had
A
to.
lot of leaders are like that.
A lot of like the Sanhedrin had to know 70 languages. They needed to know all the kinds of worship in the world. In other words, Avodah Zarah as well. Blah blah blah. They needed to be fluent in all in all the ways in order to be able to differentiate and all that. So they needed to be very very wise people, very well rounded.
Well, it's interesting you say one of the things that the Sanhedrin had to know or had to understand was Avodah Zarah. We can look at that at like a very simplistic point. We can look at the pshat of that as like, okay, they had to know what the minhagim of or were of Margulis or whatever Avodah Zarah it was.
No. They needed to be. They needed
Okay,
to
but like,
understand the culture in order to
yeah,
say that
so yeah,
Islam
but
is not
the deeper understanding of that is not they didn't have to know the halachas of the Avodah Zarah. Yes, they did, but like they have to understand what is attracting this
the
people
motif.
in
Yes.
this sort of Avodah Zarah, and the same can be said of Jewish Israelis who worship democracy or this idea of like demokratia. It's talked in like there's this holy thing and like
Well, it's
it's very
definitely better
special,
than
but
communism.
that's Avodah Zarah.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
has to be understood. What is it about the state of Israel that is so attractive to it unites the movements of Judaism mostly in America. They can all
And
talk
also
about this
Christianity.
one thing that they love, Medina's Yisrael. Why? Why can't we just love the fact that Jews live here and and that's it? We don't have to love the state. Okay.
The state, whatever. Yeah, obviously. I mean, but the Rebbe actually gave the Zionists a little bit of slack, because the real Zionists, the ones that actually hated the religious Jews and helped kill them during the Holocaust, died out. And now, what Israel, the Zionist state, which was supposed to be secular, what it has become is a gateway drug to Orthodox Judaism. So the
The
Rebbe,
state of Israel has become a gateway drug to Orthodox Judaism.
yes, Yes,
Maybe for
they
some
can't even help
people.
it. They can't even help it anymore. So with the Rebbe base,
You'd have to be able to back that up in statistics.
no. You see a lot of you see random Jews that come from out that don't know anything about their Judaism other than that they're Jewish. They come to Israel, and because it says Israel on the map, and they basically come here as tourists pretty much, and then they talk to some Jews in the bar and the
Okay, but it's
club.
not the state that is inspiring them. It's
No,
the
no,
fact that
it's not.
Jews
It's
live
not.
here that is.
It's not. It's not. But the whole, it's almost like we spoke about last time. Harav Cook said that like this, it's a state that's like a wrapper. He said, and it has to be there, but it eventually needs to be thrown away. We speak.
Who said that?
I don't know. Maybe it wasn't this conversation. But the point is, there's a concept that like it's like almost like a shell or a clipper, but it protects the orange. It's kind of like a thing now. It's almost like advertising, I think. It almost feels like advertising. It's like the Coke, the red and white on the Coke. It's not the part that you drink, but it's the part that everybody knows.
That's also interesting because that analogy of the state as a wrapper brings to mind another analogy that I actually heard. I mentioned Moshe Piglin at the time, right? In every podcast
Moshe
at some point.
Feiglin. Moshe
So
Feiglin.
I used to go up to Harabite with him every month when I was his neighbor in Karnei Shamron, and he also described like the kotel as the wrapper of Harabayas, and physically that's true. The kotel is just a
So
wrapper.
we're at the rapper now.
But that's also an obsession here. Like
Pam Shlishit, Glida.
people go to the kotel to like touch it and put notes in it and daven, and they think that's a holy place. I can't take that place. I go up to Harabai and I do Tara as much as I can, and
You go to mikveh and shit?
yeah, I go to
Oh.
mikveh. That's the only time I
Rafi
go to
Farber goes
mikveh.
to
I'm
mikveh
not a
people.
mikveh guy, but like I
He's
go
not
to
a
mikveh
mikveh
when I have to
guy.
go to mikveh because I can go to Harabai. Okay, so
He's not a
so I
mikveh
did.
guy. He's not one of those guys that you'll see there just crotching his baits at 3 in the morning, drinking beer and smoking cigarettes with his friends. He's not a mikveh guy, but he'll go to you
But
go
yeah,
into the
so
Harabais.
just like the
If you
chilul,
want Rafi to become a mikveh guy, then let's get this Harabais
it's
thing
not
built.
happening. So
Get the base of Mikdash built.
just
Rafi will be
like
one of those mikveh guys.
let me get back to the important part. So just like the chilonim, they worship this idea of democracy, and like the chief rabbi is the what do you got? The Nasiya Beta Mishpat Elyon, right?
Rafi, we should
The
meet
Chief
you and
Justice.
Moshe Feiglin should go to Harabais and we should document the whole thing on a camera.
I would like to. I'll go to Harvey's anytime.
I'll be your photographer anytime.
Oh,
So
you go up?
yeah, I'll go up.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I
So
went
not
up. I
even the
have a
best
video
guy.
on YouTube about me going up to
I
Harabais.
have, I have a great story at Harvey's. Maybe we'll go into it at one point, but maybe next week. So yeah, so just like the Chilonim, they have their chief rabbis, the Nesibeis Hamishpat Elyon. Most Haredim or Datim or whatever you want to call them, their their rapper is the kotel, and they don't want to go any farther than that. There's so many excuses and reasons not to go to Harabai. Like, okay,
Well, that brings to mind what the Alter Rebbe said that he added the word emes in a certain part of Tanya and he lost about 10,000 chassidim because all the polishers weren't down for the emes. This kugel, this cholent. I mean, yeah, that's good. You keep going with that emes, you're gonna lose a lot of clients, man. So the world is a balance. Hopefully, we'll be able to. What do we take away from this, Rafi? What do we take away? What do we First of all, we should get that Harabias thing going. That would be awesome. I think that would also push his campaign a little. Give him, sitting on Harabias talking about the Beis Hamikdash. I think that Moshe Feiglin could get some publicity. Maybe that would even change the battlefield of the next
I don't make
elections.
political recommendations.
No,
I don't know.
I'm just throwing something out there, just a wrapper. Judaism. Remember we speak about Mashiach. Everybody wants Mashiach. For everyone, Mashiach is something else. One guy it's more money. One guy it's a shidduch. One guy it's shalom bayis. One guy it's more money. Anyway, so everybody has a different Mashiach, and then when you tell them like Sanhedrin, Beis Hamikdash, Minui Melech, and all this stuff, they're like, "What are you talking about? Since when is that Mashiach?"
For me, Mashiach is Tkufas Hashotim.
Tkufas HaShoftim. In other words, anarchy. But you wouldn't want Minui Melech.
Yeah, I would be.
Like
I
a
would be. I would be okay with
figurative
somebody from Malchus Beis David
Malchus Beis David, like
coming and saying, okay, I'm going to be your constitutional monarch. I'll be supported by donations. Fine, and
okay,
then
good.
you can have your own TV channel and talk about whatever. And okay, But like,
that sounds like
I don't
Hugo
want to pay
Chavez.
for
You know,
you,
Rafi.
and
Every time I talk to you, I'm always like, is this guy like a communist? What's his deal? You have these like pictures and ideas like Hugo Chavez sitting on his own TV station. Do you know that? You know that he had his own TV
yeah, well,
station.
he had his own everything, right?
Oh man,
Except his own oncologist that didn't save him.
his own what?
His oncologist didn't save him, thank God.
What's an oncologist?
Cancer doctor. He died of
Oh,
cancer.
cancer. That's another thing.
Not early enough.
Anyway, guys, we're gonna wrap this up, I think, but because we're a little pressed on time and there's a huge ranking going on that we have to take part of. Anyway, we'll see you guys later. The point of I think for me, what I take away from this conversation is all hope is not lost. We're just at a phase. You know, we're at a phase where the world is kind of
Yeah.
going through something like a period or something. We're going through something
It's gonna get rough, but it's gonna be okay.
yeah, it's gonna be okay, man. Just throw that matzah matzah from last year that you have in the shelf. Don't throw it away. That could be your food for a couple years.
Mostly that's bugs in it. Don't throw it away.
Well,
Okay,
it
I can
has
take it
bugs.
away.
I hope. I mean, depends where you store it at. Anyway, well, Rafi, what's your closing statement today on this fine Thursday night?
I don't. Closing statement.
What
I have to
closing remarks, closing thoughts, your wish for humanity, uh, your message for the Americans that live in Israel, the Americans that don't live in Israel.
We're going back to elections for a third time. This time, everything will be the same.
Oh, that sounds good. But if you don't want it to be the same, then make a change and vote Zahut or Otzma Yehudit, whatever comes up in the raffle. I don't know. I don't know. And if you're not going to vote those things, then don't vote at all, and that will be the change. I sound very biased, but I can't help myself.
I was gonna vote for Tibi. That was my
Ahmed
plan.
Tibi, Ahmed
My
Tibi.
plan in like what was it 2014,
אנחנו נעשה
2015?
ארץ, אנחנו נעשה להם
If
מה
there's
שהם
61,
עשו לנו. בדיוק אותו דבר. אנחנו
if the Arabs have a coalition, like they have, let's say like the Arab party, the Rishima,
If they win,
if they get 61 seats and they say, okay, now the Jews have to leave. Like, it's not like we'll leave. We have all the weapons. We just won't pay attention to the Knesset, and there won't be a government, and that'll be perfect. There's my Moshiach.
that's another development to be considered.
Not literally.
Well, all right, people. Yechia Melech.
Not that.